Hello, my name is Joe Hoyle, and I'm on the accounting faculty at the University of Richmond, and I am the co-author of the financial accounting textbook published by Flatworld. We're now in chapter 9, and I want to work a quick problem with you to help you make sure that you understand the difference in periodic and perpetual inventory systems, as well as the impact of applying FIFO or LIFO as a cost flow assumption. I hope you've had a chance to work over this problem yourself, because the more you do, the more you will learn about these accounting topics. So let me go through the problem very quickly. It assumes that you're a financial analyst, you're studying the companies. You've been assigned to compare Ace Company and Zebra Company. You want to figure out which one's the best company to buy stock in or to loan money to. Both companies start the year with 1,000 units of inventory that cost $9 each. They then buy 9,000 more inventory items, and they cost $15 each. At that point, they sell 8,000 units, so they have only 2,000 units of inventory left on hand. So at the very end of the year, apparently, they buy 5,000 more at $20 a piece. Notice here that there is a very significant amount of inflation. Inflation will change what you report between FIFO and LIFO. So the more inflation you have, the bigger the difference in those two systems will be. Here we put in a lot of inflation because we want to demonstrate what the actual impact is. At the end of the year, they have 7,000 units left, and you can do the math. They have 1,000, they buy 9, they sell 8, they buy 5 more, and indeed that is 7,000 units. Each company sold the same amount, 8,000 units. The difference here is that Ace uses a periodic system to keep up with the inventory and FIFO as its cost flow assumption. Zebra uses perpetual to keep up with its inventory, and LIFO is its cost flow assumptions. So all I want you to do for both of these companies is to tell me what's reported as cost of goods sold. So let's see if we can do that. Like we're going to erase our board in class, we'll erase all of this so we can move on, in this case, to our next information. So what we're going to do to begin is to simply look at Ace Company. They're using periodic FIFO, so let's see how that's done. In case you see this on a test, how is that done? In a periodic system, there's always a couple of steps. You begin by counting the ending inventory. How much inventory do you have left at the end of the year? Now, we've already looked at the previous screen, and we know there are 7,000 units left. But in real life, you have to go out and count that inventory, and that's called taking a physical inventory or a physical count. Once you have done that, then the second thing you do is you apply the cost flow assumption to those units to determine the ending cost of inventory. You count them, and then you apply the cost flow assumption to determine the cost of those ending inventory. That's the second step. And then the third step is that you enter that cost, whatever that cost of those 7,000 units is going to be, into your cost of goods sold formula. There's always a cost of goods sold formula. Beginning inventory plus purchases less ending inventory gives you cost of goods sold. So in this particular problem, you have 7,000 units, but which 7,000 cost apply? You bought some at one price, some at another price, and the final ones I think were at $20. So according to FIFO, this assumption, the first cost have already moved into cost of goods sold. We're not looking at cost of goods sold now. What we're doing is looking at ending inventory. So if the first cost go to cost of goods sold, the last cost will remain in the inventory account. So what we want to do now is to see if we can apply that idea. You've got the idea down, those 3 steps. Now, what we want to do is to see if we can apply that to this company. First off, What's their inventory? They had 1,000 units at 9 to start with. They have 9,000 units they bought at 15, and then they bought 5,000 more at 20. That's a fact. That's not an assumption. That's a fact. If you're using FIFO, the cost of the last 7,000 units, those down here someplace, is what remains in ending inventory. You don't know that for a fact. That's an assumption. That's the FIFO assumption. So what are the last 7,000 units? In this case, the last 7,000 units, we'll do it. And I always tell my class, you peel them this way in this case. This is what you've got left in this situation. You've got 5,000 left at 20. That's $100,000, but that's not going to cover the entire 7,000. So you assume 2,000 more from the next batch up, and they cost $15 a piece. That's 30,000. Your assumption, we do not know this for a fact. This is an assumption that we use under FIFO, is that our ending inventory is $130,000. That is the basic philosophy behind first, periodic. You wait until the end of the year to do all of this computation. In FIFO, the beginning ones are all gone to cost of goods sold, and it's the ones down here at the end, 5,000 at 20 and 2,000 at 15, that are left for an ending inventory figure of $130,000. Now, that tells me ending inventory, but that wasn't the question. The question I had was, what is cost of goods sold? So we're going to take that now, come over here and do cost of goods sold. Remember, I told you the cost of goods sold formula is the beginning inventory right there, and that was 1,000 at 9, plus the purchases they made during the year. And we read the first slide, 9,000 at $15 a piece and 5,000 at 20. So they had a beginning inventory of $9,000. They bought 9,000 units for $135,000. They bought another 5,000 for $100,000. That gives you a goods available for sale of $244,000. If they had not sold any inventory at all, their cost would have been $244,000. But of course, they do sell some. So you come in here and you say, okay, what do I have left at the end of the year? And from our previous slides, we know ending inventory is 7,000 units. And according to FIFO, they had a cost of $130,000. Beginning inventory plus purchases less ending inventory gives you the number we're looking for, cost of goods sold. So what you would do in this situation is you would say 244,000 is the goods available for sale, beginning inventory plus purchases, subtract out the 130,000, and you have cost of goods sold of 114,000. If you are this company and you had these inventory transactions, you would report using periodic FIFO $114,000. Now, let's do that again. The whole problem, let's just do it again, but this time we're going to do it using Perpetual LIFO. So we come over here. We know that this is Zebra Company, but they're using Perpetual LIFO. In a perpetual inventory system, the key is that you keep everything immediately in a chronological record of what they acquire, what the cost of goods sold are, and the remaining inventory. The whole idea behind Perpetual is that you can go to your computer and you can punch the right buttons, and it will tell you at any point in time what inventory you have and what the cost of goods sold is. Clearly, once you get into a computer system, it's a bit more expensive, but the information is there and the information is current. This makes this a much more informative system for us. But you're going to keep things in a chronological order. Keep that in mind, because that's the key to a perpetual inventory system, that keeping up with the inventory as you go along in that case. So what do we say about our perpetual system? The cost flow assumption for this particular case is LIFO. When is that applied? Now, in the periodic system, that was applied when we determined the cost of the ending inventory. In a perpetual system, the cost flow assumption, LIFO, is applied each time that a new sale is made. So if they make a new sale once a week, we apply LIFO. If they make a new sale every day, we apply LIFO. It's applied when they make the new sale in this case. And that tells you, since you're applying LIFO, the cost flow assumption determines in perpetual which costs are moved from inventory to cost of goods sold. And they do that right at that moment, right at that time. So what we want to do is to see if we can take the same information we've had before and use it to determine, in this case, perpetual LIFO records. Go back to what we had. They start, and then notice, and this is just one way to set this up. You could do this in many different ways. We have a column for what we acquire, acquisitions. We have a column for what we sold, cost of goods sold. And we have a column for our current inventory, what's on hand right now. So in this problem, they start out with 1,000 units at $9 a piece, 9,000. Now we're doing it chronologically. So the next thing that happens is they buy 9,000 more at $15. So logically, they have 1,000 units at 9 and 9,000 units at 15. So anytime the company wants to see what do we have in ending inventory, they can go down to this cell. So if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, for example, and that's going to be your ending inventory at this moment. Good, we can do this. This is not impossible to do. You have the ability to learn this stuff and make an A in this course. This is workable stuff as far as I'm concerned. Okay, we're going to go one step further now. This is where we ended up the last problem, the last screen, 1,000 at 9, 9,000 at 15. You do it chronologically. The next thing that happens is they sold some. They sold 8,000 units and they sold them, and they had, now which 8,000 did they sell? Remember, they had some at 9 and they had some at 15. This is where you apply your LIFO cost flow assumption, because we have to determine the cost of these 8,000. Under LIFO, the last ones in are the first ones out. So we always go to these ending units right here, and we say they're the ones that were sold. Now, we don't know that. This is an assumption. When you're talking about FIFO and LIFO, always remember this is an assumption. And the assumption under LIFO is that when you sell some, it's these last units that you move into cost of goods sold. So if you take 8,000 away from these 9,000, you can see that we have 1,000 left at 9, that's these, and we have 1,000 left at 15. That is these after we take away the 8,000. So if the question on a test were to say, what's your ending inventory? Remember, the ending inventory is always this bottom sale under the current inventory. That's your ending inventory. If you had a question that said, what is cost of goods sold? The entire column here is cost of goods sold. So for ending inventory, let's say that's question number 1, it's 9,000 plus 15, that's 24,000. If you have question number 2 on a test that says what's cost of goods sold, it's the entirety of this column from top to bottom in that case. Oh, I mean, if you haven't seen this before, I mean, this will take a little bit of practice, but this is not difficult stuff. This is how companies do it all the time when they're doing their accounting records. Now, in this company for Zebra, they had one more thing happen. Notice that from here up is what we've previously done. And then after we've done that, they buy 5,000 more units at $20 a piece. So that goes into your inventory. So these 1,000 are still there. These 1,000 are still there. And now you've added these 5,000. What is your ending inventory? Your ending inventory is this cell right here, $124,000. What is your cost of goods sold? It's everything in this column. So cost of goods sold is $120,000. What kind of system is that? Anytime you keep things chronologically and keep up with them at all times, that's a perpetual system. Anytime you sell inventory and it's the most recent or the last cost that get moved into cost of goods sold, that is a LIFO system. So what was the question that we had at the very beginning of the problem? The question was, what is cost of goods sold? And notice, I wanted to make sure you saw this. This is inflation, so this would be what you would tend to believe. Ace Company uses periodic FIFO, beginning inventory plus purchases less ending inventory, and we use FIFO to determine the cost of the ending inventory is 114,000. That number is low. So therefore, the gross profit and the net income, if you have inflation, will tend to look high. On the other hand, Zebra is using perpetual LIFO. They're keeping up with these things as they go along. And anytime they sell anything, they move from inventory to cost of goods sold, the latest purchase, and they will report 120,000. There is no difference in these two companies. They just look different by the way they're keeping up with the inventory. In perpetual LIFO, the expense tends to be high if you have inflation, so gross profit and net income will be lower. That's an effect that people simply understand. FIFO, again, if it's inflation, will give you a higher net income, and LIFO will give you a little bit lower net income. There's no difference in the companies. They simply look different. That's what we want you to know. My name is Joe Hoyle. I'm speaking to you from the University of Richmond. I genuinely hope that you are having a great time learning financial accounting, and it's going to be a big help to you after you graduate.